Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing Oceans by Northstar Games. This is a game for 2 to 4 players, though there is an expansion that will expand that to up to 6 players. And it plays in about 60 to 90 minutes. So we have a little explanation. This is a Kickstarter version, so it comes with this and a few little variants. Also the assembly instructions. Our rule book. And a reference guide for the different cards that are in the game, which is important to know. And it tells you the cards that are in the base set, the surface cards. 2 little cheat sheets, just little player guides, tell you what to do on your turn, what all the symbols on the cards mean, and another explanation of the cards in the surface deck. We've got some punch board here for the different fish that are in the game. So the fish are basically the resources. They're also victory points. One thing that this game does, which I really like, is it color codes the fish based on the number of players. So if you're playing with 2 players, you'll just use the orange fish. And these all punch out really easily. As you can see, they're double-sided. And then as you add players to the game, you'll add different colors. So if you play with a 3rd player, you'll add either these yellows here or these dark blues. And then these lighter blue ones are for the reserve. Essentially, when the supply runs out, you'll add the reserve just so you can keep earning fish for the last round of the game. So we have some tokens over here. These are based off of player order. So essentially, the farther back you are in player order, the less bonus points you get at the end of the game. These are essentially just bonus points. As you can see, there's a different number on the back of each one. The farther back you are, so the last player is considered to have an advantage, so they get fewer points. And then these are the pieces of the box itself that go together to hold the different resources. As you can see on this one, there are 3 different zones. These are ocean zones, and they'll be the resources, the fish will be in these zones. And you'll take from these going from 1st to 3rd, and then when the 3rd is empty, when all 3 are empty, actually, that's when the end game will trigger. You have another board here. This is for the reef, which is just another section of the board that holds resources. And there are specific actions in the game that you can only get resources from the reef. You can't take from the ocean, for instance. And all this punches out really well. Couple bags. So again, the reserve bag for the extra fish, and then bags for each player count. These are just player screens. So this is the regular edition from the Kickstarter. If you get the deluxe edition, you'll actually get bags to put your fish behind when you score them, because that's hidden information. Got a bag in here. So these are the extras for the 5th and 6th player expansion. You see you get 2 more of these tokens for the 5th and 6th player. You get some more fish, because obviously you need more fish when you're playing with more players. And you get some more of these player pieces which track your different fish. And I'll get to that later. So just a couple of little extra pieces here. Got some promo cards from the Kickstarter. So there's essentially 3 different types of cards in this game. First, there are the surface cards, and they each have a different back. So these are the surface cards here. These are kind of the generic cards that you'll mostly be using to set up your different species of fish. And you'll have a certain number of cards in your hand each round. And on your turn, you'll play either 1 or 2 cards, depending on how far you are in the game. And you're essentially creating different variety of fish. So if you add this card to one of your fish, and you'll use these, that's what these guides here are for. These guides will basically sit alongside your cards, so you know this species of fish has this guide next to it. This is also where you'll put your fish when you gather them or attack other players for them. And then each card will also give you a benefit, like this one allows you to feed an extra time. And there are several different cards in here. Some of them, like these, if they have this blue symbol, means they trigger off an effect. So this one says, when another species with 3 or more attacks, you gain 2 to whatever board this one is attached to. And then there are other cards. This one, for instance, this green one means you're feeding from the population out on the board. And this red X or red circle means that this, if you have this card attached to a species, that species can't attack. And then there are more surface cards. That add different abilities. The last main ability is attack though. So the 3 main abilities are this green ability, which is feed, the blue ability that we saw before, which triggers off an effect, and then the red ability, which is attack. You essentially attack another species and you take that many fish from them. Then you have down here, that's defense, so that prevents attacks. And again, so these surface cards have different abilities that you'll add to your fish. This card is added to the first ocean zone, and essentially it's a trigger for the game. Whenever the first ocean zone is wiped out for the first time, this card will go into effect, and then from then on, you'll play 2 cards a turn. There's also deep cards. So these are cards that you can take into your hand as well at the end of your round, up to your hand size. You can't get rid of these. So once you have them, you either have to play them or they'll just sit in your hand. And these also cost you resources. So basically those victory points, the fish that you've earned earlier in the game, you have to pay those to be able to play these cards. And each one of these is unique. There are no duplicates. Everything is different. And they do a lot of really interesting things. So these are definitely cards that you want to get access to. But they can do all types of things. So this is just basically an upgrade version of that other attack card we had. This one allows you to play 2 extra traits. So you can normally only have 3 traits assigned to a specific species. But if you have this one, you can have a total of 5, or this card plus 4 more. And it also says before your feeding phase, you may swap traits with surface cards in your hand. So basically you can put cards in your hand out into play on this species, replacing other ones. So again, these do really interesting things. The last type of card are these little cards here. But when you start a game, you'll put 2 of these out. One will trigger when the first ocean zone is empty, and the other one will trigger when the second ocean zone is empty. And these can be range from pretty basic to where anything with a blue trait, whenever it gains an extra 1. Or this is a one-time effect. That's what the lightning bolt means. Species without a deep trait lose 3 population to the reef. So these do kind of interesting things. This is where the variety in the game comes from. But that is everything you get in Oceans from Northstar Games. If you want to stick around, I'm going to put together this little board here the reef and the ocean board so you can see how that's put together. So here we have the reef board, and as you can see, it's a pretty simple construction here. You got these little tabs to punch out on the side. And then these two pieces on the end are going to fold over. And then finally, you're going to put in these two end pieces, and they just slide over. Simple. Now we have the ocean board. Again, it's much like the other one. You have these side pieces that are going to fold over on both sides. And then you have cardboard pieces that are going to slot in. The only difference obviously here is where these peaks go. And lastly, you have a piece that slides through here. This allows you to have the little reservoir for the different resources, the fish, and then up here you can put the two cards that activate when these areas are empty. That's it.